Hey everyone, and welcome to my walkthrough for Future's Rewritten Ultimate. Initially, I wasn't really planning on making this video, but by popular request, I decided to come out of retirement to come and make this one anyways. And after all, Shiva Savage is kind of what started this whole wild ride for me anyways, so I just had to make this one, you know. If you've never seen any of my walkthrough videos before, essentially I'm just going to take you throughout the entire fight by the basis of my POV. I'm just going to be showing you my clear, but I'll also splice in a couple of other extra POVs for certain mechanics where I feel like it requires more than one POV to really understand all of the different aspects of the mechanic and also to just kind of have a better understanding of how the mechanic works. And I also have a handful of pictures to show you when it comes down to certain debuffs that you will be getting or a starting position for a specific mechanic. So it's gonna be a long one. Grab a drink, grab a snack, kick back, relax. We're gonna be here for a while. So let's jump straight into it. Before we begin, of course, you'll want some things out of the way like spread positions, light party groups, a conga line, as well as markers. Now the markers that we ended up using are A, B, C, and D on the right side of the arena, 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the left side. The reason why we did that is because now everything is color-coded, so we can call out a safe spot, like for example, red is safe, and then party 1 knows that they can move to the A marker, and party 2 can move to the 1 marker when we do a light party split. So that's very useful for that. For another mechanic, which is arguably the hardest one in the game, we can also color-code debuff pickups based on these markers as well, but I'll talk more about that when we get to that mechanic. But that's basically the idea behind our markers being the way that they are. So for phase 1, we're fighting against Fatebreaker, and the whole gimmick of this fight is going to be that he is going to be infusing a lot of his mechanics with a fire or a lightning aspect. This can be seen throughout, like it literally swirling around his body as he is casting the ability, and you can also hear the sound of it, so you don't necessarily need to always be looking at the boss to know what mechanic is being infused or which element is being infused. So, at the start of the fight, he is going to be beginning with Cyclonic Break. This is going to be a spread mechanic, so you can see all of us being spread around in our clock positions. This one is infused with fire, and depending on fire or lightning, it is either going to be stack or spread. Fire is stack, lightning is spread, and this thematic will also stay the same throughout the entire fight. So fire is usually going to be stacking or being close to something, lightning is going to be spreading or being far away from something. That stays consistent throughout the entire fight. Now after the initial AoE goes off, that is where we then dodge to either stack or spread. Because this is fire, it is going to be stack, so we're all stacked together in our partner groups over here, 1 support with 1 DPS. And then after this, we're going to be alternating between the safe spots. So you can see the first safe spot go off here, the second one, and then the third. At the end of this, we get a tank buster. This one does require a tank swap. And on top of just giving you the usual physical vulnerability down that makes it so that the tank can't keep main tanking, they will also get a second debuff that when it explodes will do a secondary tank buster that will also hit the other player that is closest to that tank. This will go off during the second mechanic, which is why our tanks can't really participate in the next mechanic that is coming up. So we do a tank swap right here, heal our tank, and then we go into the first major mechanic, Utopian Sky. For this one, everybody spreads out to their spread positions, except the tanks. The tanks are not on A and 1 because they are dealing with this tank buster, as you can see, or as you maybe not are able to see over here in the party list. This little debuff is about to time out, which is the tank buster, which will hit the tank that the debuff was applied to, as well as the closest player to that tank, which is going to be why our 2 tanks are in the middle of the arena, utilizing some cooldowns. Everybody else is spread around the map, making sure that you're opposite of a partner, and you're going to be looking at the boss clones that are spawning in behind you. There are going to be 3 clones that are going to be raising their swords high, and they are going to cleave through the middle of the arena. If your sword is high, it means that your safe spot is not going to be, well, safe anymore, and you will need to move to another one. This is where we utilize our color callouts, because we can just be like, red is safe, and then A and 1 will be our 2 safe spots for our 2 light parties. So in this case, because the sort is down of my clone, I'm going to stay at my clone. If my sort was raised, I would be taking a step into the arena, signaling that the 4 marker is not safe, and then my partner, who is standing on the D marker, will also take a step into the arena, because if 4 is not safe, then D will also not be safe. And then you do this for all of the positions, and then if all 6 of the players move in, we know that by process of elimination, the A and the 1 marker will be safe, because our tanks are the only 2 players that can't go check if their spot is safe, yes or no. Now, as these clones spawn in, you'll also see that our tanks are now going to take their tank buster, and you can see that 4 players move in. I don't move in because my sword is down. My partner didn't move in because his clone's sword was also down, which means that the purple markers are going to be our safe spot here. Now, before I show you what happens in the safe spot, we have to go back, because the boss showed us if it was fire or lightning during this cast. If it was fire, it was going to be a stack while we are in the safe spot, but as you can see, it is lightning, which means that we are going to be spreading in the safe spot instead. So again, tanks stay in the middle, everybody else spreads out, you move in if the sword is raised, you stay if it isn't, you call out your color, and then we go spread. Now for the spread positions, very simple. One of the players stands on this cross right here on the markings on the map, the other player stands on the fidget spinner, and then the 2 players on the side utilize these little circle AoEs, and we basically go stand on the notch next to them. You don't necessarily need to stand directly on this marking, because if you stand like slightly to the left, you'll get hit by the cleave. So you can stand like just slightly to the right, and that is more than enough space to fit everybody in. And as you can see, we get the cleaves coming out, we get the ranged, we get the spread AoEs coming out, and then we move back to our initial spread positions, because the boss is once again going to do Cyclonic Break. This is the mechanic that he did at the start of the fight. This time it is infused with lightning, meaning spread on the first dodge. So we go to our positions, we heal, we mitigate, and then we spread. Now, while Cyclonic Break is going on, 2 more clones are spawning in. One will always spawn on the north side of the arena, the other will always spawn on the outside of the arena on the west side. This one on the west is guaranteed to be lightning. The one in the middle can be lightning or fire. So this is the only one that you really have to pay attention to. Now, as for dodging the Cyclonic Break here, Party 1 is moving north and Party 2 is moving south. The reason why we're doing that is so that we can dodge the lightning clone from the west side. He's going to cleave through the arena, and then that cleave is going to expand because it is lightning. Again, lightning is usually be away from something, so in this case we need to just be north and south to dodge this explosion. Now after that, another clone on the north will spawn, which will guaranteed be fire, and he is going to be doing a cleave through the arena that will knock you back, which is this thing right here. And then we still have a safe spot, which is either left or right, and then 2 stack markers going off as well. Kind of a lot, so let's walk it back. So over here, when we get our Cyclonic Break, we can already start looking at what the north boss is going to be. In this case, it is lightning. Lightning means that when we get the circle AoEs you saw earlier, that the lightning ones are going to expand, meaning that the fire ones are going to be our safe spot. So that is why we see lightning here, we do the call out, red is safe or fire is safe. And then as we are in our safe spot, we can see, oh, fire is safe, so we're going to go to the left side of the arena. As you can also see, there are 2 more clones that just spawned on the outside of the arena that are tethering 2 random players with a fire tether. Fire means stack, so we need 4 player stacks for these tethers. It is possible that these tethers are in the same group, so let's say for example they're both in my group, then one of our players would need to adjust to Party 1, and then somebody from Party 1 would have to come to us. The way how we did this was based on a priority system. Tank, melee, ranged, healer is the priority that we use throughout this entire fight. So let's say for example our healer is tethered right here. Now if the tank was also tethered, he would just call out tank swap, and then he would go to Party 1, and then the tank from Party 1 would come to Party 2. But because we didn't have to do that, we don't have to do any swaps over here. So we know that the fire side is going to be safe, so we're waiting for the lightning cleave to come out. As soon as that comes out, we move in to get close to the middle. Over here you can see kind of like a line going through the middle on the markings of the arena. This is gonna be the middle of the AoE, and the AoE goes until these two lines over here. So you can like kind of extend them using your imagination, so you know you have to be behind this line. After that AoE goes out, as you can see right here, this is the safe spot for that, or like this is the AoE for that. And then we move into the middle because we're getting knocked back. And of course you don't want to get knocked into the wall. And then you have a little bit of time to reposition yourself to dodge the circles. And then you stack 4 and 4 to get hit by these stack markers. Then we get a raid wide AoE. This one will pop up a very nasty bleed, so put up some mitigation for this. And then we go and make our first conga line for the next mechanic. So for this mechanic we are getting 4 tethers. 2 of them are going to go north, which is going to be 1 and 3, and then tethers 2 and 4 are going to go south. This is again going to be 4-player stacks, but they are a little bit different. So instead of just being a 4-player stack, they will be lightning and fire infused. You know this by 3 ways. You can look at the boss, you can look at the clones, you can listen for the sound, or you can look at the tether. So this tether is lightning infused. You can see kind of like a red and a bluish like glow on the tether. This one is going to be a fire tether because this is just fire. Then the next one is again a lightning tether, which is 3 goes north. And then the last one is again a lightning tether. It's random what these tethers are going to be infused with. Can be 4 lightning, 4 fire, 2-2, 1-3, doesn't matter. Completely random. The conga line is then purely for the 4 players that did not get a tether to move north or south. So the 2 southmost players go south, the 2 northmost players go north. In terms of how you handle these tethers, it's very simple. The fire tether is going to be a stack, so everybody is stacked together behind the player that gets lifted into the sky, and then we just have a nice cone facing outwards of the arena because we don't want to clip the players on the other side of the boss. And then for lightning, we are just going to spread around. So the first tether goes off right here, boom. Then he's get lifted, goes off, this is the fire tether. Then the lightning tether player goes in, and then we spread around in a nice triangle, so we get this nice triple cleave going to the side, keeping the north side of the arena safe. And that's the end of the mechanic, so we'll just take it once more time from the start. So we make our conga line. First player goes north, lightning. Second tether goes south, fire. Third tether goes north, lightning. And then the final tether goes south, lightning. So for me, I'm just thinking, first one was fire for me, so we stack up. Second one for us is lightning, so we spread out. And then that is the end of the mechanic. After this, we have another raid-wide AoE with bleed, so heal up and mitigate. There's a lot of like healing and mitigating that needs to happen during this. And then we get another tank buster, Powder Mark Trail, so again, tank swap. And then when the debuff expires, that is being put on the tank here, it is again going to explode on the tank, as well as on the nearest player to it. Then we get into the next mechanic. This has 3 things to it, I guess you could say. We have towers spawning on one side of the arena. The boss is going to be cleaving the arena with either a knockback or a stay away from the boss, again, depending on if it is lightning or fire. And then our tanks are going to be taking their tank buster on the other side of the arena, of which the towers have spawned. Now, for the tower aspect of this, it's very simple. You just assign 2 players to each tower, and you have 1 player that will guaranteed stay in that tower, that's the anchor player, and then you have 1 player that's the flex player. They will move into the tower that requires an extra player. This will always work because the towers are only going to be spawning in a 2-2-2, 1-2-3 or 1-1-4 configuration. In our case, we got the 1-2-3, so the player that is normally in this tower right here on the south, he's just going to go into the north tower, and that's it. So if you're the flex player, all you're looking for is if your tower has 2, if it does, you stay. If it has more than 2, you stay. If your tower has a 1 in it, you go into the tower that has more than 2, and that's all there is to it. Together with this, the boss is doing Burn Strike. This is going to be either a cleave through the arena and then a knockback, which is this right here, or if it is lightning infused, it's going to be a cleave into the arena that will expand its AoE. If it is the expanding one, you just go chill in your tower as soon as you can and you just stay there until the AoE resolves. If it's the knockback one, you stay close to the boss and then you get knocked back into your tower like so. And then as these towers explode, so does the tank buster. That's the one with the debuff. Like when the debuff expires, it does the tank buster on the tank with the debuff, as well as the one closest to it, which is why both of our tanks are going to the other side of the arena. Now the only thing that's left here is to give your main tank a little bit of love, because there is still an auto attack or two that comes out here, so you don't want him to die to that damage, and then we get the enrage cast, so just kill the boss before the enrage happens. Then we go into Shiva, the second phase. For this one, we are immediately starting with a tank buster. This one does apply a debuff on the tank, but if you just use Esuna, or if you have a Bard like my group did, you use Warden's Paeon, you can just cleanse that debuff and your main tank can take both of the hits of this tank buster. If you just use some heavy mitigation for that. And then we go into the first mechanic, Mirror Image. So she's going to be spawning a clone here of herself, and then we get Diamond Dust. There's a lot of things going on in this mechanic. I am going to be showing a few different POVs of it, so that you can see kind of like how all of the different aspects of this mechanic play out. And yeah, let's just get into it. So the first thing that's gonna happen is you can see these big circle AoEs spawning on the arena. They will spawn in sets of 2, 4, and then 2 again. So the first ones that spawn are coming in a set of 2. The second set will come in a set of 4, so they'll spawn on all of the, well, intercardinals, I guess you could say, if these 2 circles are our cardinals. And then the last ones will spawn opposite of each other again in a pair of 2. Together with this, we get a close far mechanic, so either Axe Kick, which is going to be outside safe, or Scythe Kick, which will be inside safe. We get 4 players marked with a circle AoE, which you can see a bit better over here. And then the 4 closest players to the middle of the arena will also get hit by a cleave. Very simple. If you have an AoE circle, you're not taking a cleave. If you don't have an AoE circle, you are taking a cleave. And then of course, inside or outside. Now, for positioning wise, we have our fixed spread positions, which is what we start with. However, the circle AoEs, they need to be dropped on the second AoEs that are going to be spawning, like the second big circle AoEs. So in this case, if we were to just move out, that wouldn't work. We have to rotate 45 degrees for this to work. So we do start in our fixed positions, but if we end up having this configuration, then we would just call out rotate, and then everybody moves 45 degrees clockwise, and then the entire mechanic just works out. Secondly, we of course have in or out. In this case, it is Axe Kick. You can see this based on 2 things. One, you can look in the aggro list over here, you can see Axe Kick being cast. The other thing is you can listen to the voice line. She does have voice lines for this. If it is Axe Kick, she says cleave. If it is Scythe Kick, she says reap, because you cleave with an axe and you reap with a scythe. That's kind of like the logic behind it, I guess. So once you're used to it, just listen to the call out. You don't even have to look for the cast bar anymore. So in this case, it is Axe Kick, meaning we all move out. So as you can see, the second circle AoE just spawned, and all of the players with the circle AoEs are standing on the second AoE. And then the other players, the other 4 that did not get it, this is role-based by the way, so this is either all the DPSs get the circle AoEs, or all the tanks and healers get the circle AoEs. It'll never be a mix of the 2. So in this case, the supports, the tank and healers, they are going to be baiting the close cleaves. Now, for these close cleaves, I don't really like what our healer is doing right here. He can do that because he's a white mage and he has a gap closer. But I'll show you in a later POV how I like to do it if it is outside safe. The way how you bait these is by being closest to the middle, so all the circle AoE players go to the edge of the map, and everybody else that needs to bait a cleave stands behind this circle that you can see on the floor. This is basically the range at which the Axe Kick is going to be hitting, so if you stand right behind that over here, you're going to be baiting that cleave. So the cleaves come out right here. After this, just about half a second later, the circle AoEs drop their AoEs, and then we can all move into the middle. We call out which of the colors was the first set of AoEs, which in this case was the purple color. So we call out purple. Party 1 goes to D, party 2 goes to 4. Everybody moves to the edge of the arena, which will dodge all of these AoEs going out. And then we look towards this boss right here, the white one, the Oracle of Light looking one. Because that's the one that we will be basing our dodge off. In our group, we made a very simple rule. We will always be dodging away from this boss, unless we end up directly behind the boss or directly opposite of the boss. In that case, we rotate clockwise. So in this case, because my group is on the left of it, we will be going to the left away from the boss, and the other group that's over here where I'm pointing with my mouse, they will be going this way, because that's also moving away from this boss. And these are of course going to be group stacks. These are puddles. If you stay in the puddle for too long, you get a bleed and you will die, which is of course not so very good. Now, as you're doing the dodge, one of the bosses will again spawn on the outside of the arena and do a look away mechanic, so look away from that. And then the boss that stayed on the middle of the arena will freeze the floor, which is why you need to stand still at the end of this mechanic. Again, if the floor is frozen, you're gonna start ice skating across the map. Now, once this goes out, so you can see look away happened, the floor is now frozen, the boss is now going to do one of two things, either stillness or silence. Stillness means that you need to be behind the boss before the cast bar finishes, and then you need to get away from the behind because you need to be in front a second. Or she will do silence, which means that you need to stay in front, and then after the cast is done, you need to be behind the boss. Again, two ways to do this. You look at the text bubble or at the cast bar, or you listen to the voice line. I did find that here looking at the cast bar is better, because for example with stillness, you want to wait until the cast bar is done before you start moving. So cast bar done, we move out again. Because otherwise it can be a little bit tricky to get the timing down, I guess. So we'll look at it again. This time around we get scythe kick, so we have the inside save. And I'm going to rewind a little bit to kind of show you a better picture of the floor here. You can see that we have this like kind of flower looking thing on the floor, I guess. It has like the four pointy things. You want to be inside of this flower pattern on the floor, because that way you'll be safe from the sidekick. And then also the 4 players that are baiting the cleaves, just be really close to the middle of the arena. That way you're guaranteed to get the cleave. As soon as the scythe kick is done casting, you move out to this other circle on the map. You move out, and then this thick circle is where you now drop your AoEs. The people that baited the cleaves, make sure you move to the middle as to not get hit by these circles. And then again, same thing as before, you call out the color. In this case it was red. And then you get knocked back to that color, you move to the edge of the map to dodge the AoEs, and because we are this time directly behind the boss, we rotate clockwise both groups until we end up in the safe position. The boss here on the left spawn on the outside, so this one is going to be the lookaways. As we're done dodging, we look away from this boss, we stand still, we wait for stillness or silence. It's silence this time, so we wait for the cast bar to almost be finished before we start moving, and then we are behind the boss in the safe spot. Then let's do it one more time. This time around it's gonna be outside safe with the DPSs baiting the cleaves. And this is how I prefer to do it. So as you can see, normally the samurai was going to be baiting his cleave on the 3 marker, but because the 3 marker is also where the first AoE spawned, it means that he has to pop sprint and be really tight in his timing to get back into the middle to get away from this first AoE explosion. Our Pictomancer here on the left is going to be doing that, but he has smudge. It's like a gap closer that gets him really far into the middle, so that's why he's going to be doing that. But I much prefer to just do it like this, where you rotate to the nearest safe spot clockwise, and then you just stand left and right, and then you can move in, and you have so much time to do that. So I'll show that one more time, so you can kind of see how that works. So we get, I'm normally on 4, but because we didn't get the AoEs, it means we call out the rotate, meaning that I am now on the A marker, and then the circle AoEs will be on like B, D, 2, and 4. And then of course our samurai, who would now end up on 3, is coming to A with me, so that we can bait our cleaves, and then we move into the arena, plenty of time. We get knocked back, and again, we are once more ending behind the boss, so we're going clockwise. As soon as the first AoE comes out, we run. You might be like, you're very far ahead of the group. Well, not really. It's kind of like how the server handles these things. The other players will actually be further in reality than you can actually see it, which is also something that will come back in a later mechanic, where you have to like interact with something that's moving on the map, which can kind of like have some very annoying situations. But yeah, again, after you're done dodging, you look away from the boss. She was on the left. You look for stillness or silence. It's stillness, so we get behind the boss. As soon as it's done casting, we move away. And that is then the end of the mechanic. After that is done, we get a line AoE that is baited on a player, so everybody stack up, use some mitigation. And then we go into the mirror mechanic. This one always resolves in the same way, so only need one pull to showcase this one. So she's going to be spawning 3 mirrors. 2 of them are red, 1 of them is blue. The blue mirror is the one that you will be looking at first. What needs to happen here is the 4 ranged players move to the blue mirror. The tank will be dragging the boss away from the blue mirror. Very important because she is doing Scythe Kick, that is the donut AoE, meaning that you don't really want your ranged players to get hit by that donut AoE. And if you bring the boss to the blue mirror, there will not really be enough room for you to handle this mechanic. So what's gonna happen is she does the Scythe Kick, which again is the donut, and she will then also hit the 4 closest players with a cleave. Now the blue mirror is going to be mirroring this mechanic, so the blue mirror will also be doing this donut AoE with the 4 cleaves. Now because our group, the boss and the tank and the 2 melees, are going to be like on this side of the arena, we need to keep this side safe. And the same thing for the melees. So let's say the 4 marker is going to be where our melees are fighting the boss, then 1 will stand here, 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here to bait their cleaves to this side of the arena, leaving the back side safe for us ranged. And we are standing on the left and the right of this mirror again, baiting our cleaves like so, as you can see right here, which will then leave this big open pizza slice where then the boss and the melees and the tanks can stand. After this is done, we look where the other 2 mirrors are positioned, and again, the melees and the tank will move to one mirror, the ranged will move to the other one. This is going to resolve exactly the same way as what just happened, 4 cleaves with a donut. However, this time, we need to position our safe spot slightly different, because of course, the groups are not opposite of each other anymore, they're now next to each other. So in this case, I'm normally left, I'm now going to be standing in the middle, because I want to create a safe pizza slice on the left side, as you can see right here, as to not hit the other group with my AoE. After this is done, we look towards the boss. Her halo will have orbs circling around it. If it has 1 orb, it means partner stacks, so 1 tank and healer with a DPS. If it is 4 orbs, it means everybody needs to be spread apart, which it's 4 orbs, so everybody is spreading out. And that is then the end of this mechanic. So I'm going to rewind it one more time. So over here we get mirror, mirror, the cast. The tank gets ready to drag the boss away from the blue mirror. The ranged players are getting ready to move to the blue mirror. You go into your spread positions, so I am on the left here with my white mage, and then the Picto and the Sage on the right. We take the first cleaves, move to the middle to heal up and mitigate again. Party 1, or the tanks and the melees, go to one mirror, the range go to the other. You keep one side open, that is the side of the mirror. You look at the boss. 1 orb is partner stacks, 4 orbs is spread. And then we go into light rampant. For this one, we have a conga line or a conga circle, I guess it sort of is. And we have 4 players that will be the north side players, which is me, the 2 tanks, and the Pictomancer. And then the 2 healers, as well as the 2 melees, are the south conga line. This is important for callouts as well as for adjustments that need to happen for this mechanic. So the way how we are trying to do this is we're trying to create this. So with this you can see that there are 3 players on the north side, we have 3 players on the south side, and then north and south, as well as southeast, southwest, are going to be switching positions with each other to create this bow tie. Now, the reasoning why the conga line is important is because 2 players are going to be getting these circle AoEs, so they're not part of the conga line anymore. The way how we do this is if you are on the side that only has 2 players, well, okay, let's rewind real quick. Normally, you have a 3 and 3 spread. If that's the case, you just do what I showed on the picture. The players in the middle switch to the other side of the arena, and then the southeast and the southwest player also switch positions with each other. That's the ideal scenario. However, if you have a scenario like this, where you have 4 players on one side and 2 players on the other, the way how we handled it is on the 2-player side, the rightmost player looking into the arena adjusts to the other side, whereas on the 4-player side, the leftmost player will move clockwise. Now this looks a little bit different depending on if you are adjusting north or south, but because it's always the same person doing this, it's very consistent. Like for example, our samurai will always be the person adjusting north if we have a 4-player on the south side, because I mean there's no 5th player there, and our Pictomancer in our case would always be the one adjusting if it was on the north side, if we had 4 players here. So that's why this is very consistent. So what happens here is the players with the tethers are now going to be making their bow tie. There are still these 2 light orbs that you can see. These are stack markers, but that doesn't matter. These players will always end up on the other side of the arena with this strat. And then of course we have 2 players with these circle AoEs. These circle AoEs are going to be dropping puddles, so you just go north and south with these, and then you just rotate clockwise. It's as simple as that. So the towers go off right here. The northmost players move north, the southmost players move south. Make sure you dodge these puddles, you don't want to stand in those of course. And then the stack marker goes out right here. We dodge the second puddle. Then you look at your debuff, your light rampant debuff. If you have a 2, you go stack in the tower. If you have a 3, you don't. Then you look at the boss's halo again. 4 orbs is spread, 2 is partner stacks. It's spread in this case, everybody spreads out. And then at the end of the mechanic, we take spread positions again for the House of Light, as this will do cleaves on everybody and will apply your final stack. If anybody is getting a 5th stack because of this, you just blow up and wipe the raid. So not really ideal. And then after this, she just goes into her enrage cast. You just need to get the boss below 20%. To beat the DPS check. But don't worry, we'll take a look at the mechanic a couple more times so you can see the other 2 iterations as well. So in this case, we have a 3 and 3 spread. So as you can see, our Dark Knight is the one in the middle. He's gonna go south, and then me and the Pictomancer just go northeast, northwest. On the south side, we have our Dragoon on the right. We have our White Mage on the left. They are switching positions. And then our Sage is in the middle. He's gonna come north. So they switch, healer comes north, tank goes south, we have our beautiful bow tie. The puddles start rotating, as soon as these go off, we go north and south. As you can see, now the north side is safe for us, so we need to wait next to the AoE explosion for it to explode before we move in. And then again, players with 2 go stand in the tower, players with 3 wait outside, stack or spread, it's spread in this case. And then we spread again for the House of Light. And then we'll do it one more time, this time with 4 on the north side. So you see 4 on the north, which means leftmost player adjusts to the south side. So our Pictomancer is going to go to the 2, because if our Pictomancer rotates clockwise, he is now the rightmost player here, and the rightmost and the leftmost player in the south side need to switch around. So that's why our Pictomancer is going to 2. And then of course the rightmost player on the south side will be going north. So our Dragoon in this case will be coming to the A marker. So again, very consistent. Everybody takes their tower, puddles are being dropped. North moves to north, south moves to south. We are once again waiting for this explosion. Stack marker goes off. As soon as the explosion goes out, we move in. Unfortunately enough, our Dark Knight ran in too soon. 2 players go in, 3 players stay out. And then that is the end of that mechanic. So, once you have beaten the Enrage, this still does raid-wide damage, so make sure you put up some shields and mitigation. And then she's going to knock people away, so also make sure that you stand somewhat close to the middle of the arena, as to not get knocked into the wall, because that would not be good. Now, what's going to happen here is we are going to have 4 light crystals and 4 dark crystals spawn. These will all have baited AoEs on them, which is why we position the way that we do. And we will need to DPS down the Crystals of Light. So this is what it looks like. On the Cardinals, we will have the Crystals of Light. On the Intercardinals, we will be having the Crystals of Darkness. All of our ranged players are on a Crystal of Darkness to bait this one, because the Crystals of Light need to die, the Crystals of Darkness need to survive. Crystals of Light will be dropping puddle AoEs on the closest player to it. Crystals of Darkness will be baiting cone AoEs on the closest player to it. Because the light crystals need to die, we pair a ranged on a crystal together with a melee player on a light crystal. We also pair up our DPSs with our support. So I'm with the Dark Knight, for example. Our Samurai is with the Sage, etc. So that all of these crystals die at around the same time. Once all the crystals are dead, we can then start hitting the ice that is encasing the boss, because we need to free the boss to move on. The reason why we are not attacking the darkness crystals is because these need to survive as they power up the Oracle of Darkness, or well, Gaia in this case, so that she can do the rest of the 50% that is remaining of the boss's HP bar. So you basically need to get the Crystal of Ice to 50%. So as you can see, I'm hitting the crystal on the left, I am baiting the cone AoE, and then the circle AoEs are baited by our melee players. And there's also a really nice bug in this phase where sometimes this AoE indicator can be underneath the eyes. And if it's underneath the eyes, it can become really annoying to dodge, and you need to basically look in your aggro list to see when the cleaves are happening. So as soon as all the crystals of light have died, we can now hit the Icy Veil, which is like the crystal encasing the boss. And as I mentioned, you need to get this to below 50%, because Gaia will smack it for another 50% at the end of the cast bar. So as you can see, Gaia is going to jump in right here, bonk, and she basically destroys the rest of the ice. After this is done, put up some mitigation, because as soon as Reen wakes up, she will do a raid-wide AoE right here. Boom. So you definitely don't want to die to this. And then Gaia is going to be corrupted, turned into a Logriff, and then we go into phase 3. First thing that happens in phase 3 is everybody is going to drop to 1 HP. So if you put up some shields and mitigation before this, it will stay. This actually doesn't do damage, it just drops your HP to 1. So you can just like quickly heal up, and then you keep your mitigation for ultimate relativity, which is our first debuff vomit mechanic. Now for this one we are making a conga line. As you can see, the DPS are spreading out here on the south side, the tanks and healers are spreading on the north side. And then you'll also see that we have macros that we put on ourselves. As you can see right here, the 1 and the square, and then the 2 ignore markers. We do that to signal which of the players have the duplicate debuff, I guess, because both groups will have 1 duplicate timer, and we use that so that these can spread out to the correct position. Now for this, I have some cheat sheets. So we have the debuffs over here. This is for the DPS. And we also have the tanks and healers, which I'll show in just a second. So in this case, for the DPS players, you will have a 10 second, a 20 second, a 30 second, and a 20 second ice debuff. This fire debuff is going to be an explosion. The ice debuff is a donut AoE. You've probably seen this one before. And then we also have a couple of other debuffs going on. So we have stack markers, we have rewinds, we have a water marker, which is also a stack. We have a purple debuff, which is a like single target AoE on that player, I guess you could say. And then you also have a look away mechanic, a shriek, that you can have. Now, the main important thing when I was progging this mechanic, which was how I kind of learned how to do this, is I only look at this debuff over here. This is what indicates your position on the map where you're going to be starting. And then essentially when I had nothing going on, I was standing in the middle of the map, and when I had to go do something, I would go do something. Also for your rewinds, to drop those, the important thing to remember is if you have the purple debuff, you're going to be outside. If you have something else than the purple debuff, you're going to be inside. So you don't have to remember what water or shriek is, you just have to remember, if I have purple, I'm out. If I don't have purple, I'm in. That's all you have to think about. For starting positions, you can see this little image over here. This is going to be the tethers. I'm going to show it right here on the map. Boom, you can see it right here. So these 2 yellow tethers together, this was going to be our north side, and then this yellow tether that goes down here, this would be the relative south. So this is what we are going to be positioning ourselves around, as you can see. Boom, north, south, east, west, and then this was going to be mine in this case. So that is kind of like what this picture is referring to. So if you're a DPS with a 10-second buff, you go southeast, southwest. This is the reason why we have the conga line. If you're a DPS with the 20-second fire, you go east. If you have a DPS with the 30-second fire or the 20-second ice, because it's only one of the 2 that will happen, then you go south. For the tanks and healers, same thing. just looks a little bit different. So they are going to be using the west and the north scythe. Here, the 10-second debuff can be a 20-second ice, so again, one of the two. The 20-second debuff goes left, and the 30-second debuff is the double one in this case. They use the conga line to go northeast or northwest. You can use this cheat sheet to do all the inside-outside shenanigans if you want to do that, but again, if you know what these debuffs do, then you don't really have to pay attention to that. So we're going to go back to my POV, and I'm going to run you through this mechanic a couple times as a DPS. I'll show you what debuffs I have, and then we'll just kind of talk things through. So, Ultimate Relativity finishes casting, you get your debuffs. I look at my debuffs and I see I have a 20-second fire, a 15-second rewind, and a 42-second water debuff. The only thing I have to care about is the 20-second fire and the water debuff. 20-second fire tells me I have to go to the east, and the water debuff is not a purple debuff, so that means I'm going to be in the middle of the arena to drop my rewind. That's how that works. So I'm now going to look towards west, so I rotate my camera, boom, this is going to be west. These traffic lights, they are going to be doing rotating laser beam AoEs, and you have to bait these. The yellow tether means that the AoE is going to be sped up. No tether means it happens at a normal time. Purple tether means it is going to be delayed. So in this case, this traffic light is going to go off first, this one second, this one third. That's kind of how that works. So again, if you're not doing anything, you're in the middle of the map. So I'm not doing anything right now. I still have like 10 seconds on my rewind. I have 15 seconds on my dark fire, so I'm chilling in the middle. So we get our first stack marker going out right here, boom, as well as the first dark fires exploding. Then we get the first baits. Now I can see that my rewind is almost about to expire, so I'm gonna take a tiny step outwards. It's kind of hard to see maybe, but I'm taking a tiny step towards my traffic light here to drop my rewind. The reason why I'm doing this is because you don't want to be dead center, because if you're dead center, you can't look away from the shrieks, you can't look away from the look away mechanic, so that is why you need to take a tiny step towards your direction. Now, after I drop my rewind, I see that my dark fire has 5 seconds on it, so I need to move out. I do wait a second because this laser beam could have clipped me, so that's why I wait a bit. And then again, I move into the middle. Again, I'm chilling because there's nothing going on for me right now. And then I am seeing that my traffic light is now going to do its thing. So I'm going to go bait my traffic light. The easy way to do this, you can see on your thing that's above your head, the clock, there is this little black dot. If the black dot disappears behind this line, then you're basically good. You just stand a little bit outside of the arena for this, in case if there's a player to the left of you, that they don't get hit by the laser beam. And then at the end of the mechanic, you look out towards your traffic light, you get the rewind, and then you get, as you can see, the purple players on the outside get this big red AoE, and then in the middle we get the shrieks, the look away mechanic, as well as the water debuff that explodes as well. After that's done, everybody moves into the middle for Shell Crusher. That is a stack that everybody needs to be together for. And then we get Shockwave Pulsar, which is another raid-wide AoE. So again, just heal up, mitigate. And that's the end of the mechanic. Then we have a Tank Buster, but we'll take a look at the Tank Buster in just a bit. So in this case, I have the Ice debuff. If I remember, Ice goes south. So that means I'm going to be finding the south marker. So in this case, it is going to be right in front of me. So again, chilling in the middle, as long as nothing's going out. First section spreads go out, I go bait my laser beam. And as you can see, this is why it's important that you bait it slightly outwards, because to the left and the right of me were two DPSs dropping their rewinds. Then again, I go back to the middle, my eyes goes out. Then I take a tiny step towards my traffic light, because my rewind is being dropped. And because I didn't have purple, I'm dropping it in the middle. And because I have nothing going on right now, I am again chilling in the middle. And then I am looking out towards my traffic light for the rewind. This is a little DPS optimization you can do. If you can be in the middle of the arena while the rewind is going off, you can position yourself on the other side of the boss that your traffic light is on, so that you can just keep pressing your GCDs and you don't actually have to look away with your character, because it will happen automatically from you pressing your GCDs. The rewinds happen. I'm a little bit far outside of the arena, but luckily enough, I didn't get hit. And then again, stack in the middle for Shell Crusher, and then again, you get the final one. Then over here, we have 10 seconds. So because I have 10 seconds, I am pressing my macro, because 10 seconds is the one in the DPSs that can have 2 of them. So that's why I have the macro showing my samurai that he has to go to the right side of the arena, and I am going to the left side. So we're finding south, going southwest, that's my position. My dark fire goes off. I'm also seeing that I have the purple debuff, so now I need to be on the outside of the arena with my rewind. Now the rewind, you drop it kind of on the marker. As you're a tank or a healer, you need to drop it slightly behind the marker, and that is because one of the tank and healers, the one that goes to the west, their laser beam AoE will be going on while the rewind is happening. So that's why you drop it like slightly behind the traffic light. Okay, so I drop that. I go to the middle. Stack marker goes out. Then my traffic light begins spinning, so I go and bait my traffic light. Okay, bait it, go back to the middle, another stack marker. And then I go and position myself so that I'm looking to the outside for the rewind. When it comes down to the stack markers, basically every 10 seconds there is a stack marker in the middle of the arena, which coincides with also the dark fires going out on the outside of the arena. So every time a dark fire explodes, a stack marker will go off in the middle of the arena as well. So at the end of all of that, we get Black Halo. This is a double tank buster. So either both of your tanks stack together to take this one, or invuln it. We ended up stacking it because it's much better to use your invulns later into the fight. And then we split left and right for the next mechanic. Now, this mechanic has a couple of layers to it. The first one is that we get a bunch of stack markers. I'm going to pause right here. So this is Spell in Waiting. If you've done E12 Savage, you will know what this looks like. If you've done E2, I guess, you know what it looks like as well. These are basically going to go off later when the timer expires. There are 3 different timers here. You have a short one, which is about 10 seconds, I think. You have a medium one, which is about 25 seconds or like 30 seconds almost. And then you have another one, which is 40 seconds, and these come in pairs. This is why we have our priority system. Again, tank, melee, ranged, healer. And depending on your priority, you might have to adjust to the other side of the group, or to the second group, I mean, because you want to have one of each timer in every group. This is also a really good mechanic for which you might want to sort your party list. If you open up your party list, you can reorganize it based on just clicking on the person that you want and then putting them higher or lower, which is also why you can see that my Sage is right underneath me on the party list, whereas normally he'd be like below the White Mage. And that is because the Sage is the only person I have to look out for. If me and the Sage have the same debuff, I need to move to the other group, which is why I put my Sage right underneath me. Makes it super easy to see if you have the same debuff, yes or no. Now, because the Samurai has the same debuff as me, my Samurai is lower in priority than me, so he is going to be adjusting to the other group. So as you can see, Samurai notices that we have the same debuff, so he goes away. The Dark Knight had the same debuff as somebody else in his group, so he comes to us. We already have a little box made. The reason why we have the box is so that we know in which position we are going to be spreading out. Because after this AoE goes out, Gaia casts Spirit Breaker or Spirit Taker, something like that, which basically means she's going to jump to someone and bonk them with her hammer. And if somebody else gets bonked that was not supposed to get bonked, they get yeeted into the edge of the arena, and you don't want that to happen. Now, as you can see, there are also some AoEs pulsating around the arena. You can see them starting right here on the 3 marker and going to 2, which means that the 4 marker and A is going to be the safe spot for my group. The way how we ended up calling this is again based on color. So in this case, we would say first safe spot is 4, or first safe spot is purple, going into red or something like that, or just purple red. That would be the call out here. The reason why we do that is because if you're in this situation where you have a letter and a number as a safe spot, you kind of mess up with the system where group 1 goes to letters and group 2 goes to numbers. So that is why we made a priority of the first color that is called out will be where your group goes to. So because 4 is a number, which is the first safe spot, me from group 2, who goes to numbers, goes to 4A. And the group that goes to the letters goes to D1. That's kind of like why we do it like that. Another reason for that is because the tank, one of them, is going to be baiting a tank buster by distance, and they have to run into the second safe spot, because the 4 marker, or the first color that is called, will remain safe the longest for us to move into the arena, or to the middle of the arena, whereas the second color that is called will be the first safe spot again after the entire mechanic is done, in the middle where our tank can run towards. So in this case, the purple color will be where the ranged players will be playing around to run into the middle of the arena, whereas the red color is where our tank is going to go to bait his tank buster. Again, I'll show this mechanic a few times, not to worry. The reason why we need these 2 colors is because of this. We're going to be spreading out because we get 4 personal AoEs around us. You dodge these after the 2 pulses have gone out on the arena. So you can see right here, first pulse, second pulse, split second later, these AoEs go out, and then we move to the middle. And this is why we needed that first call out, like the purple was safe. And as you can see, as soon as the AoE goes out, I am moving to the right to align myself with the purple marker so that I can dodge these AoEs right here on the left and the right and use the highway to get into the middle of the arena. Then you can stand slightly behind this middle circle. If you want to play it safe, just run into the circle and then like take a step back when you see where the AoE ends, because a second set of stack markers goes out here and you don't want to get hit by both of these. And then as soon as these stack markers goes out, our tank is running to the edge of the arena to bait this tank buster, and then we get the knockback. We run back to the arena, or to the boss for the final stack markers, and then we get Shockwave Pulsar, which is a raid-wide AoE. Now, cool tip for this one, if you press your mitigation on the P of Pulsar, it will catch both this one as well as her Enrage cast. So if you press it on P of Pulsar, your Feints, Reprisal, Addles, it'll also catch the Memories and raid-wide. Just like with phase 2, you need to get her below 20% in order to not die to the Enrage. So let's take a look at the mechanic a few more times. So again, we get our stack markers. You look into your party list based on your priority system. I have a different timer than the White Mage or than the Sage, so I'm staying. In this case, there's like a little exception, I guess, to the rule. Our Pictomancer really didn't like taking a melee spot because he was very used to being in the ranged spot and using his gap closers to get to the boss. So in this case, I'm going to be switching with the Pictomancer to give him the ranged spot, essentially. Pulsate starts, we see that yellow and blue are our 2 safe spots, so we're playing around yellow for our highway, and then our tank is going to run towards blue for the tank buster. So you see 2 pulses, we run to the middle, stand on the circle, a little bit behind it, 2 markers go out, tank runs to blue to bait the tank buster on the first player, you got knocked back, and then again you go to your left and right groups. Our Dark Knight ended up sacking himself here on purpose because the Dragoon died on the earlier mechanic, and we didn't want to potentially take a 3-person stack, because if you take a 3-person stack, all of those people will get a damage down. We didn't want to have that, we wanted to be able to continue, so that's why our Dark Knight ended up sacking himself here. That's why it looked a little bit weird. So again, next pull. In this case, I did not have to adjust again. So we stack up, we get ready to spread. After the AoE, we spread out. Again, it's yellow and blue, so call out yellow, blue. You spread out, pop sprint, wait for 2 pulses, 1, 2 AoEs go out, move to the marker, take the highway into the middle of the arena, spread out as far as you can for the 2 AoEs. The tank goes to blue for the tank buster, get ready to be knocked back, and then again, left-right groups for the final AoE. And that's the end of this phase. So then we go into phase 4. Now for phase 4, you actually know where the boss is going to spawn based on 2 things. One, she will always spawn on the opposite side of where you killed Gaia, or at least it kind of looks like that. But the boss will always spawn on either north or south. And you can just listen to the voice line, like before she spawns, she says this voice line right here, like her awakening is incomplete, their memories weaken the link. you can hear where this is coming from. So based on that, you know if she's north or south. If she spawns north though, you need to be very careful, because on the north side, there's also a memory crystal that spawns. If this crystal gets hit by any AoE that you have control over, it'll die. And if that crystal dies, you can't go to phase 5, because the door boss from E12S will show up and will wipe you, the tree boss, and then you just can't go to P5. So you need to keep the crystal alive. So because of that, you'd have to be very wary to not hit it with your Akrai's, which is what's going to happen right here. The boss is going to transform into her Grijsvelger form. If you've done Shiva Savage, you know what that looks like. And then you'll also know that when she spreads her wings, that is when the Akrai's are going to be baited. So right here, when the wings spread, you move away, because these AoEs are going to drop on you. And then Oracle of Darkness is going to spawn in again. And this is kind of important. So because the Shiva boss, or Usurper of Frost in this case, has been targetable for a while, and you've also just used your 2-minute buffs on her, she has dropped quite a bit. She's already at 60% HP right here. However, the Oracle of Darkness is full HP, and later into the phase, there is going to be an AoE that requires them to be within 5% HP of each other. If they're more than 5% apart, you'll just straight up die to it. So that's why it's important that at some point, earlier rather than later, people switch over to the Oracle of Darkness to start DPSing her down to get her HP within that 5% of the Usurper of Frost. But first we get a mechanic to talk about, Darklit Dragonsong. For this one, we are once again going to be utilizing our conga line. We have our healers and DPSs on the west side of the arena, or healers and tanks, I'm sorry. The DPSs are going to be on the east side of the arena. We make our conga line, and then we get some tethers. So there are two things that are going on here. So we have 4 players that are going to be tethered. We need to create a bow tie. Now in this case, the bow tie is already correct. So we just move northmost players to north, southmost players to south. One player in the bow tie will also get a stack marker. One player that is not in the bow tie will also get a stack marker. Because the bow tie stack player doesn't have any agency of where he can go, he only has one spot on the arena where he can go, it means that the player without the bow tie in the stack needs to potentially adjust. Now in this case, the player needs to adjust because we see that the bow tie is correct, meaning that this player is going north, but because of the conga line priority, this player is also north. That can't happen because then we have 2 stacks on the north. So these 2 players, the 2 DPSs, need to flip at the end of the mechanic. If you see it early enough, you can flip immediately, and then you just go north-south, easy. If you see it too late, you flip at the end of the mechanic. So what will happen here is 2 towers spawn. This is for the 4 bow tie players, and then the 4 players closest to Usurper of Frost will again bait those cleaves, which you can see going off right here. So boom, the 4 cleaves. Then Gaia will do Spirit Taker again, the bonk. So everybody needs to spread out. Very important that you don't hit the crystal with this. And then we again have Usurper of Frost doing a cleave left or right side of the arena. You move away from the glowing wing. And then we stack together 4 and 4. So our DPS is flipped here with the stack. 4 players north, 4 players south. Again, away from the crystal. And then we have Somber Dance. This is again the tank buster that is baited by distance from phase 3. So she's going to be jumping on the furthest player, which is a Dark Knight in this case. And then she will jump on the closest player. But because our Dark Knight used his invuln for this, he's able to take both of the hits. And that is going to be the end of this mechanic. So I'll showcase a couple more scenarios. So in this case, our bow tie is also correct already. However, it is correct east-west, not north-south. So in this case, we need to rotate clockwise, as you can see right here, end up in the correct position. And then again, the stack marker that is not in the bow tie, he is on the north side right now, but the stack in the bow tie is also north, meaning that our tank and healer on the left here need to swap at the end of the mechanic. So the towers go out, the cleaves go out, we spread out for the bonk, bonk happens, we stack up on the side that the wing is not cleaving, again, stack away from the crystal, the Dark Knight runs away to bait the tank buster, gets close to bait the second tank buster, and again, The rest of the party should also make an effort to be away from the boss, as to not bait this one by accident. End of the mechanic. And then last but not least, we have the square, or actually, well, this is not the square, this is another clockwise movement. Here you can see what it looks like if you're not in the bow tie. So again, because the stack is north, and I can see that my samurai has the stack north as well, me and the samurai need to switch positions at the end of the mechanic. So we spread out, bonk, we switch positions for the stacks, stack together, Dark Knight runs away to bait the tank buster, first bonk gets close with the second tank buster, and then end of the mechanic. And this is where we then have the square. So if we have the square bow tie, or well, the square tethers, I guess, the DPS would always adjust for this. So if you have a square, I just go south, the other DPS goes north, and that then creates the bow tie as well. And then again, if you have the stack, you might have to adjust. In this case, the stack is in the north tower again, so our Pictomancer can stay south. There's no adjustment that needs to happen there. So again, bonk, stack on the side that is not getting cleaved, boom, and then our tank runs away for the tank buster, and then end of the mechanic. Once the mechanic is done, we get Akmorn. This is baited on the 2 players that are first in aggro, if I'm not mistaken. Now, because one of our tanks is tanking one boss, the other tank is tanking the other boss, this just goes onto our 2 light party groups if we split like that. So just locate north, party 1 went north, party 2 went south, and then you have your groups for the Akmorn. This will also put a debuff on you, so you can't switch to the other group. This also goes to res immunity, so if you get rest, don't stack together, because you'll die. And then we get Mornafa. Now the Mornafa, this is the one for which the bosses need to be within 5%. If they're more than 5%, this Mornafa will kill you. Also, if one of your tanks ends up dying during any of the mechanics here, the Akmorns will probably kill you as well. So no pressure, tanks. And then we go into Crystallize time, the second big debuff vomit mechanic, for which we are once again going to utilize our conga line, and for which I am also going to show you every single debuff that you can get in this, because this is by far the hardest mechanic of this entire fight. So, debuffs. These are all the debuffs that you can get. We have 2 players with wind and red, 2 players with ice and red, 1 player with purple and blue, 1 player with ice and blue, 1 yellow and blue, or stack marker and blue, and 1 player with water stack and blue. What do these do? Well, we already know what a stack marker does. We already know what a water stack marker does. We know what ice does, that's the donut. We know what purple does, that's the circle area around you. And wind, well, that is just going to be a knockback from that player. These other debuffs on the right, the red and the blues, these are going to be interacting with the dragons that are flying around on the arena. If you're a red debuff, you can run into a dragon to make it explode and drop a puddle on the floor. If you're a blue debuff, you can pick up the puddle on the floor to cleanse the debuff. That is what that is referring to. Now, in terms of starting positions, these are going to be fixed, which is really nice. So for our red players, that is where we are using the conga line for. The 2 ice players are going to go left and right, which on our positioning is going to be 3 and C. The 2 wind players, they take a step backwards and they again go left and right. The purple debuff player goes to the north, where the purple tether is at. And everybody else goes to the south, again, where the purple tether is at. The tethers are always going to be similar. The yellow one will always be north-south, and the purple one will always be a diagonal. It'll be northwest to southeast, or northeast to southwest. This will always be the same. So, at the end of Crystallize time, we get our debuffs. This hurts, by the way, and the entirety of this mechanic does a lot of damage, so mitigate, shielding, healing, very important right here. You can see that I have a wind debuff, wind and red, meaning I'm going to take a step back. Our Sage is the other player with the red, so he's going to go left, I'm going to go right. We are going to position ourselves next to the first traffic light. Now, in this mechanic, the traffic lights don't do the laser beams, they instead do big circle AoEs on the ground instead. And you can see these circle markings, this is going to indicate where they're going to explode. Now, I'm on the side that does not have a purple tether. That's important for me to know because it means I need to wait for this traffic light to explode before I can go grab the dragon head. Because again, the way how these tethers work is the yellow tether speeds up the explosion, the purple tether slows it down, meaning we go yellow tether explodes first, unmarked traffic lights explode second, purple traffic lights explode third. So that is why after this AoE goes out, I'm gonna move in, I'm gonna wait until this circle AoE goes off. A very good thing here is to press sprint, by the way. And then as soon as this goes off, I'm gonna run into the dragon head to make it explode, and then I'm running back south. Now, for these dragon heads, these are moving objects in a Final Fantasy XIV game that has horrible servers, which means that the dragon heads are not actually where they seem to be. So you need to be slightly in front of the head to make them explode on like their trajectory. I think in one of the POVs you might see where I miss a dragon head because I just couldn't catch it, I guess you could say. But yeah, that's essentially the movement you're going to be doing here. So you wait next to the first AoE, you move in, you wait for the second AoE to go off, you sprint towards your dragon, then you're coming back, you're stacking south, everybody else goes north, because this will automatically dodge the final set of circle AoEs, and you'll also be able to dodge the wave coming in. And then you can see that the second set of waves is going to spawn, and you want to find the intersection of where they spawned, which in this case is going to be the B marker, because east and north had waves spawning, so northeast is going to be our safe spot at the end of this mechanic. This is where we're then going to be dropping our rewinds. These bombs that just went off are just random raid wide AoEs. You don't really have to worry about these unless you're a healer. You drop the rewinds, and then you spread out for Spirit Taker. Again, be careful not to hit the crystal. Somebody got bonked. Everybody gets rewinded. And then we get knocked back left. We get knocked back south. Something that's very good here to do is to locate the north side, because we get another Akmorn into Mornafa. So knowing where north is going to make the split into the north-south groups really easy. And that's the end of the mechanic. So I'm going to show it to you again, based on, again, all of the different debuffs that you can get. So we're doing the other wind this time around. This is the wind on the side of the purple tether. So you can see this time the purple tether is on my side of the arena. So the group is with me. The important thing here is that as the wind player, you don't immediately move. You stand still here, because the group is going to be yeeting themselves across to the other side, as you can see right here. And my software glitched out for a second. So you can see the AoE goes off. I am waiting. The group positions in front of me. They get knocked away. And then I can go and grab the dragon head. Then I go south, dodge the remaining AoEs as well as the waves. I locate where the waves are coming from. Oh, it's the 2 marker, meaning that I'm gonna go and stand on 2 for my safe spot. Quietus AoEs drop right here. Rewinds drop. What's very important here is that you do not get baited by the Quietus explosions, because a lot of players will be like, oh, Quietus went off, time to move, but your rewind hasn't dropped yet. So you need to wait for Quietus and then the rewind to drop before you start moving. Again, spread out, and then you get rewound, etc. Then for the Eyes AoE players, they are going to be taking a step forward, again from the conga line, to see if they go left or right, and then they go and stand on the 3 and the C marker. And then in my case, the purple tether is on the north side. I paused a little bit too late. But again, depending on where the purple tether is, your movement is going to look different. So because the purple tether is north, that means that I, as the Ice player, am now going to be part of the group stack. So as soon as I take the dragon head that's coming in right here, I am now moving north, not only to dodge the circle AoE on the floor here, but also to be part of the stack. And then I'm just going to move to the north side to dodge the final set of circles as well as the waves. And then I'm locating where the 2 waves are coming from. The 2 marker is the intersection. So we're just running over here. And we're dropping our rewinds and we're spreading out. And then we get the bonk, and then we get rewound, and then people get knocked around. Knockback 1. Now, what's very important about your positioning here for the rewind is that you're split like this. So you can see that when we get knocked back, there's a tank in front, then we have Light Party 1, or the remainder of Light Party 1, we have another tank, and then we have the other party. The reason why that's important is because the first and the fifth player that get hit, they get hit harder than the rest of the group. So that is why the tanks need to be kind of in between the two groups. So as you can see, this tank got hit first, then 3 players, then this tank, and then us 3 players. And when we now get hit from the left side, tank gets hit first, 3 players, second tank, 3 players again. So very important for your positioning here. And then we get the second knockback, end of the mechanic. Then we get the eyes on the other side of the arena, with the purple tether south. So what you have to do here is a little bit different. So instead of stacking with the group that is getting yeeted here, the group is getting yeeted to the left side of the arena instead of the right side, because the group starts here and they get yeeted like this. It means that I'm gonna dodge south after I take my dragon head, and then I am immediately sprinting north as soon as this goes out, because as you might remember, the other wind player is taking the dragon head on the D marker, so I don't want to be there. So I go north, I wait for the AoEs to go off, and then I'll look for the intersection, it's on the 4 marker, so I call that out, and then drop the rewinds again, quietus, then rewind, then spread, careful of the crystal, etc. So those were all the mechanics that the red players had to do. Let's now look at the blue players. Now for me, what I thought was kind of the best way to do this is the red players help look for the waves, because the blue players are going to be busy for a little bit longer. The reason why they're busy for a little bit longer is because they have to go pick up their puddles, and these puddles, as I mentioned at the start of the video, are color-coded. So if I go and take my debuffs here again, you can see that the 4 players with a debuff have different colored AoEs. Purple debuff can go take their cleanse on the D marker, because the D marker is also purple. The yellow debuff player can go take their debuff on the 2 marker, because that is also yellow. Now, that leaves us with a puddle on the C and the 3 marker. These are both blue. So who goes where? Well, I think it was our samurai that came up with the idea that the water debuff looks kind of like waves. Waves from the ocean. Waves from the sea. C marker. So that's kind of how we went there. That's kind of like the thought process behind it. Which means that the 3 marker, which is the one that was left over, is going to be for the ice player. So that's kind of how we did that. Purple goes to purple, yellow goes to yellow, the water marker, the C debuff goes to the C marker, and then the ice debuff goes to the 3 marker. In this case, I am yellow, which means that I am the stack. So I'm going to stay in the conga line until people find out where to go. I find out where the purple tether is, because that's where we need to go. I wait for the first AoE to go off. And I'm positioning myself in front of the arrow player. I'm getting yeeted to the other side. I'm now stacking together with everybody here. What's important is that you stack around this traffic light, because you do not want to hit the crystal with your debuff, of course, with your stack marker. So this goes off. As soon as this explodes, we move to the middle to dodge the debuff, to dodge the circle as well as the wave. And then it's time for me to go pick up my debuff. Now remember, I was yellow, meaning I'm going to the 2 marker. The 2 marker is kind of far away. If you are somebody with a blue debuff, once the wave passes you, this is a good place to press sprint. But if you press sprint right there, I can go all the way to 2, and I can run all the way back to the B marker before my sprint runs out, and this makes it so that I'm just in time to drop my rewind. If you are something that's not a blue marker, you can press your sprint on some different timings, which I already kind of talked about those, I guess. So here I am the water debuff. Again, water, sea, ocean. I'm going to the C marker. Again, we go to the purple tether. I position myself in front of the wind player, get knocked back to the other side, stacking together behind the traffic light, moving north. I am waiting for the wave to pass. I am pressing sprint. I am running to the C markers to pick up my debuff, when it is safe to do so, of course. And then I am going to 4, because that is where the intersection was. Now, unfortunately enough, I was a bit too slow, so I am gonna end up dying in this case. However, if you notice that your rewind is dropped in an unfortunate position like this, it is possible to press arm's length. and knockback immune the very first cleave, or the very first knockback. If you time it correctly, I think it is possible to immune both of the knockbacks, but that's very difficult to time. So if you have an unfortunate rewind, try and press arm's length, I guess, to try and save it. Otherwise, we are probably just going to be dead. So again, spread, rewind, etc. And then here I have the ice debuff. Again, I am looking for the purple tether. What's important here is that I'm definitely close enough to the wind player, because I do not want him to get hit by the donut AoE. And then again, ice is 3, so after we take the stack and go north, I am getting ready to run to the 3 marker. Wave passes, so I press sprint, I take my debuff, and then I go to the safe spot in the end, wait for quietus, drop the rewind, spread out. You might have noticed that our Dragoon tried to pick up the puddle as well. He was supposed to go to the D marker, which is why our Dragoon ends up dying over here, because he could not cleanse his debuff. You get rewound, and then, of course, the knockbacks. And then the last one, the purple debuff. This one goes to the purple tether in the north. So again, locate purple, go north. Make sure you do not hit these dragon heads, by the way. And then you position like so. Wait for your debuff to go off. Then you stack together with everybody else. You move to the north side. Wait for the wave to pass. You press sprint. You sprint to delta, because delta is purple and you were the purple marker. Then you go to the intersection. You drop your rewind. As you can see, I moved away when the quietus hit and not when the rewind dropped. So that is why I would have died there. So I'm gonna go run through these, all of them, one more time, because I do feel like it's very important that you know everything in this mechanic quite well. So that's why I definitely want you all to know everything. So I'm just gonna run through them in real time, all of the different options. So, first one, wind. I move south for the conga line, left and right based on that. I see that purple is not on my side, which means that I need to go sprint into the dragon head. So dodge the first one, press sprint. As soon as the second AoE goes out, I sprint into the dragon head. I now run south to dodge the final AoE as well as the wave, and then my job is done. Now I am looking for where the waves are coming from, and I am calling out the safe spot so that the people that are picking up their puddles do not have to worry about that. Pulsar, drop the AoEs or drop the rewinds, spread out, do not hit the crystal, and then you get rewounds. And then of course there is the positioning that I talked about before, where it is tank 3 players from both sides, and then end of the mechanic. Then one more time, this time I am wind without the purple tether, or with the purple tether, sorry. So for this one, I am going to be waiting for the other people to be knocked to the other side before I start moving. They get knocked away. I now go and pick up my dragon head. I then move south, dodge the wave. I'm now looking where the second wave is coming from so I can call that out. I'm calling out the 2 marker as our safe spot. Again, position left and right. We always did party 2 on the left side, party 1 on the right side to keep things consistent. Looking out of the arena, and then again spread for Spirit Taker. Then I have the ice with red, so I am moving forward. I'm seeing that the purple tether is on the north side, which means that I am stacking with the rest of the group. So as soon as I take my dragon head and my ice debuff explodes, I am running north, stacking together, running north to dodge the waves and the explosions. And then again, looking out for the waves. Where are they coming from? Oh, they're coming from 2. So I call out 2 as our safe spot in the end. Position yourself left and right. Drop the rewind, spread out. And then the rest of the mechanic resolves itself. Again, be very careful that you do not move when quietus explodes. It's very easy to be caught off guard when that happens. For this one, I am the ice player with the purple tether on the south. So I'm getting ready to dodge south this time and then sprint north. So over here I take my dragon head, I press sprint, I go south, dodge the AoE, immediately run north to not get clipped by the dragon head exploding. Then again, dodge the wave, look where the second wave is coming from, call out the safe spot so that the players picking up the debuffs have an easier time getting there. Drop the rewind, spread out, don't hit the crystal. Rest does its own. Yellow debuff, I am going to the purple tether south. I am keeping in my mind I am yellow, which means I am picking up a puddle on the 2 marker, because that one's also yellow. Knock to the other side, stack behind the traffic light as to not hit the crystal. Move north, wait for the wave to pass, press sprint, run towards the 2 markers to pick up my cleanse, pick up the cleanse, run towards the safe spot that is being called out, pulsar, wait, drop rewind, spread out, don't hit the crystal. This time I am the water debuff, the water of the ocean, the water of the sea, so I am going to the south purple tether, positioning myself in front of the wind player as soon as the explosion goes out. Knocked back to the north, stacking together. Then we are stacking completely north to wait and dodge the wave. Once the wave has been passed, I press sprint. I go towards the C marker because I am the C player. Pick up your puddle, run towards the safe spot that's being called out, and then spread out for the rewinds. Again, if your positioning is slightly off, you can try and press arm's length. Here I am the ice player that is with blue, so not with red. So I am again going to the purple tether on the south. Positioning in front of the wind player. Knock back north, stack together. Go all the way north to dodge the wave and the final explosion. Press sprint, and this time I am running towards the 3 markers to pick up my debuff. And then I am going to the safe spot that is being called out by the red players because they have an easier time seeing it. Drop the rewind, spread out, and then again, rewind happens with the knockbacks. And then last but not least, we have the purple debuff. This one is going north on the purple tether. Be careful as to not accidentally get hit by the dragon here. Once the dragon head explodes, you can stack together with the rest of the group. Move north, wait for the wave to pass. Your purple debuff, so you're going to the delta marker as that one is also purple. You pick up your debuff, and then you go to the marker that was called out. Quietus, wait for your rewind, don't do like what I did right here. And that's the end of the mechanic. After that's done, and something that's kind of important. So while you're getting knocked back, it is very useful of you to already orient your camera towards north. Because after this mechanic we get an Akmorn. So you want to be in your north and south groups. So that is why it's kind of important to identify north as soon as possible. Another thing is that your 2 minutes will be up here. You do not want to use them. The reason why you don't want to use your 2 minutes is because otherwise you won't have them for phase 5 and you kind of need them there. So yeah, don't use your 2 minutes here. You can use your 1 minute though, if you want to do that. And then of course 4 pulses and then get middle for Mornafa. Make sure both of the bosses are within 5% of each other, because otherwise Mornafa will kill you. And then they get their Enrage cast. Of course they didn't get it here, but normally now you would have the Enrage of the bosses, where you have a couple more seconds to go and DPS them down. Now, if throughout this phase you accidentally kill the crystal, the tree boss from E12S will show up here, the door boss, and he'll just wipe you. If you kept the crystal alive instead, you will get this nice little cutscene to go into phase 5. Now, phase 5 has a sort of mandatory limit break 3. I've seen people not use LB3 for it and like hyper mitigate it, but honestly, you should just use LB3 for it. Which means that you can't really LB at the end of phase 4, but of course you can do it if you just want to practice. But do know that you will need an LB3 going into phase 5 to have that tank LB ready. Now phase 5 itself only has 3 mechanics outside of the limit break mechanic, which will be exaflares, a mechanic that is 100% carried by your tanks, and then a mitigation check essentially. Those are the only 3 mechanics that are going on. So if you're good at dodging exaflares, if your tanks are good at the tower mechanic, then this phase is not too bad on anyone that's not a tank, essentially. Yeah, if you're a tank, good luck. You are essentially going to carry this entire phase. So we're going to be starting out with Fulgent Blade. This is raid-wide damage, so make sure you put up some mitigation for this. And this is going to be spawning our beloved exaflares. Now, these are always going to look exactly the same, and they're either going to rotate clockwise or counterclockwise. Now, in this specific POV, I think they always go counterclockwise, but do know they can go clockwise as well. Just know that they can't start in the middle. So in this case, the first wave is starting over here on the C marker, the second wave is starting over here on the A marker, and then the last one is starting over here on the boss. You can't have the A one start first. It'll always go 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3. Won't be any other way. The way how you dodge these is by waiting for the second explosion to go off and then moving into the triangle that is away from the next explosion. So in this case, we see that these are going off first, so we rotate our camera to see where they are. First explosion, second explosion, and you can kind of see where they overlap here. There's this back triangle. This is where you want to move into, and if you move into this, you can just stand still for the next set. So 1, 2, move into the triangle, 1, 2, move into the triangle, and then you're safe. After this, she does a cast of Akmorn immediately, and because there are no 2 targets for this to go on this time around, it is going to go on 1 random player on her left side and 1 random player on her right side, which is why you need to be split apart like this, making sure that you're past the middle point of the boss. Otherwise, things are not going to end so well. After this, we get Paradise Regained. This is the tank tower mechanic. The way how this works is we are going to be reorienting ourselves with the first tower that spawns as our relative south point. And then for our DPS players and our healers, this mechanic is going to be really fucking easy. You just stand in the towers, and that's it. Our tanks, however, are going to be baiting tank busters and pointing the boss away to not cleave the group. So the way how this works is the first tower was always for our healers. The tower that spawns on the northeast side, or well, relative northeast, is going to be for our ranged. The one that spawns on the northwest side is going to be for our DPS melees. So healers, DPS players, fixed positions for this mechanic. Now for our tanks, they are going to be interacting with the tank busters. So there are 2 types of double tank busters here. The white wing or the dark wing. These wings will do about a, 270-degree cleave in the direction that the tank is facing, but then also on their side of the arena. So the white wing will cleave the left side, the dark wing will cleave the right side, because that's where they are positioned on the body of the boss. And depending on white or dark, they will also do a tether on the player that is either closest or furthest away from the boss, which is also a tank buster. So in this case, our Dark Knight is currently main tanking, so he's going to be positioning the boss, and our Warrior is currently the off tank, which means he is going to be baiting the distance-based tank buster. Now, because I can see a white tether right here, I know that it is already going to be the white wing that does the tank buster. Now, the white wing is baited on the furthest player away, so you can see our tank is running away right here. Now, our Dark Knight is positioning himself in the middle of one of the 2 towers that spawns on the side that the wing is going to be cleaving. So if the dark wing was cleaving first, he would have stood here on the left, but because it's the white wing that cleaves first, he stands here on the right, because he needs to not hit the group, of course. The group is going to be positioning right in front of the first tower that spawned, because the tank needs to be furthest, so the group is getting closest to the boss. The second time we see this mechanic, we get it the other way around. So you'll see how it looks like when this mechanic goes dark into light instead of light into dark. So as soon as the wing cleave goes off, you can see right here, it's kind of like a cone in front of the boss, and then it hits all the way until the middle point of the boss. And this is important to know, that it goes until the middle of the boss, because the second tank can use that to aim this. While this goes off, the off tank provokes the boss here, because he's going to be taking the next tank buster, and then the tank that just took the light cleave, he is going to be baiting the distance-based tank buster now. So then we have our ranged move right, our melees move left. We go stand in the tower as close to the other tower as possible. So you can see we're here on the right side, hugging the wall essentially of the tower. The melees are standing as leftmost as possible in their tower. And that is because our warrior is now going to be baiting the tank buster over this way. And as you can see, you can kind of drag a line throughout the boss. Half of this tower is going to get hit by the tank buster, and part of our tower is also going to get hit by the cleave that is going to come out from the boss. And then of course, we're also standing away from the boss as much as we can. The healers as well are standing away from the boss so that our Dark Knight can stand in the middle to bait the distance-based tank buster. And this tank buster is also a little AoE around itself, so do make sure that you give him some space. And then you can see the cleave happened right here, and then it's cleaving half of this tower as well. And then as all of the towers have exploded, that is the end of the mechanic. But I'm going to take it one more time from the beginning so you can see how it all unfolds. So we reorient to the tower, we see the light wing is cleaving. So we all get close, the tank gets far, the other tank gets ready to aim the boss correctly. We go through, we go and take our towers. The main tank now becomes the off tank and he gets close, whereas the other tank now positions the boss again to cleave the other side of the arena. And he will be hitting the two towers, which is why we need to be as close to the other tower as possible. And then we do another tank swap here, so we can essentially repeat this mechanic exactly the same as the first time that we did it. After this, we get Polarizing Strikes. This is essentially just a mitigation check, but there is a little extra sprinkled in as well. So this is going to be hitting the two players that are closest to the boss with a light and dark cleave. Or line AoE, I guess. And after the line AoE goes out, it explodes before you can move back into it. And the first player that gets hit also gets a debuff that prevents them from getting hit by the same color a second time. Again, we are using the same priority system as before, tank, melee, ranged, healer, to do the swaps. So here our tanks are in front. We take the cleave, we step off the line because it explodes right here. We step back on. Melee is in front, off the line, back in. Ranged in front, of the line, back in. This time I'm switching over because I was in front, and then healers in front, and then we step off. So if you're in front, you're switching to the other side and you're staying there for the rest of the mechanic, and then every time a laser beam goes out, you step off the line as to not get hit by this follow-up explosion. And then we get the Tank LB mechanic, Pandora's box. Something that's nice to know here is that if you press your mitigation on the B of box, it will also catch the next rate wide that happens. And then here when it says transcend your limits, you press the Tank LB to live through this mechanic. And then we go into the Fulgent Blade. Again, if you press your mitigation late enough, you can catch this raid wide as well. And well, you've seen all the mechanics now, so I'm just going to talk over them as we kind of see them unfold. So we locate where our exaflares are meeting up. We check our camera to the side where the first one's coming out. We move into the triangle away from the next set. Wait for two explosions, move in. Wait for two explosions, move in. Left and right of the boss for Akmorn. So we can like slightly move in there. Then we go back into Paradise Regained. So again, you look for the very first tower that is going to spawn. That becomes your new south. So we locate the tower. You look at the wings. It's the dark wing first this time. So we are moving out as a group. And then as soon as this cleave goes out, we are moving in. Again, be as close to the middle as possible. And then after all the towers have been taken, at the end of the mechanic, we get another Polarizing Strikes. This one happens faster than the first one after the tower mechanic, so you need to be very quick to move into position here. Tanks first, tank swap. Melees first, melee swap groups. Ranged first, ranged swap groups. And then healers first. And off of the line. Then we get one last set of Fulgent Blade exaflares. So mitigate, this is the last set of like raid-wide damage that you get, I guess. Locate where the exaflares are starting, orient your camera. Again, wait for two explosions, and then move into the triangle away from the next set 1, 2, move into the triangle, 1, 2, move into the triangle. You can also press sprint for this, by the way, if you want. And then Akmorn be across the center of the boss. And then we have the Enrage. So over here, your LB will be about halfway charged, but not to worry. Rin and Gaia, through the power of friendship, will fill the rest of your LB bar. So as soon as the LB fills up, if one of your melees just send it, this is also where you have your third and last usage of your 2 minutes. So just juice the boss, press the LB, scream together with Rin and Gaia, and there you go. Congratulations on your clear. If not, you've hit the Enrage, and well, you get another cutscene to see, because it's actually kind of cool. The Enrage, if you hit it, there's a different cutscene that plays, but if you do make it, then there you go. Congratulations on clearing the fight. So, that's gonna do it for this video. If you have any more questions about any of the mechanics, feel free to leave a comment down below. We'll definitely try to help you out. You could also hit me up on Discord, there's a link in the description of the video. And yeah, good luck on prog, good luck with your clears. Let me know down below if you managed to do it. Always happy to see that. And yeah, I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.